As a financial planner focused on sustainability for almost 20 years, I've talked to thousands of people about their investments, and I keep getting the same questions over and over. Today, we're going to tackle 3 of my most frequently asked questions. My name's Tim Nash. I'm a certified financial planner. My company's called Good Investing. I've helped more than 20,000 people invest according to their values. Let's jump in. So a question that pops up is, should I just invest traditionally and donate the difference to good causes, to charitable causes, to be able to meet my values? Well, to me, this question is just ridiculous. First of all, inherent in the question is this assumption that returns are going to be lower, right? This idea that if I invest sustainably, I'm going to earn a lower return. And so a way to maximize my impact would be to invest traditionally in lots of evil companies and, get those higher returns and then donate the difference. But that's just not the case, that we can earn nearly identical financial returns by investing sustainably. So just wearing my financial planner hat, like the question itself is kind of silly because we don't need to sacrifice returns. Now, some people will say, well, the fees are higher for sustainable funds, so maybe I should invest in the traditional funds and whatever that fee differential, that's what I'm going to donate. Well, that used to be the case. There was a time when we really only had mutual funds that were socially responsible, right? And those did have higher fees. But that's not really the case anymore, that now we have these ETF, these exchange traded funds with really way lower fees than mutual funds. So yes, the sustainable ETFs do have slightly higher fees than the standard ones, but we're talking about in the ballpark of something like 5 to 10 basis points. That's like 0.05 to 0.1%. The stock market moves that much in like an hour, let alone a day, let alone a year. Like, it's so minimal. It also means that the dollar amounts are really low, that if you invested 100K, like 10 basis points on that is like $100 a year. So the argument is that you're going to, invest in these terrible companies and then donate $100 a year in that fee differential. Like, that seems really silly to me. So that's kind of the financial side, the financial planner side. But then when we look at it from the sustainability point of view, it just gets absolutely absurd. Right? This argument that somehow you should be investing in companies that run completely contrary to your values and then donating. If you're worried about war and the military industrial complex, this notion that you're going to profit from Lockheed Martin and from Palantir and earn profits from that and then donate to a peace organization, like, that's just absolutely ridiculous. That you don't have to do that at all. So to me, whenever I hear this argument that, I should just invest traditionally and then donate the difference, it really tells me that people are either ignorant or they're lazy. Sometimes it's both. But they either don't understand that you can earn the same returns and still have very low fees and invest sustainably. But it also tells me that they haven't really thought through their change theory. Because really, for me, we need diversity of tactics. We need to be attacking these issues from a whole bunch of different points of view. And if you're someone who's really worried about climate change, this notion that you're going to invest in oil companies and profit from oil companies and then donate to a climate change advocacy group, like, you're really missing the boat here. As well, those donations need to happen every single year. If you donate that money, you got to keep doing it. Philanthropy is great. It's absolutely got a role, but it does require this continual expenditure. Where's our investments, right? We're investing in those companies every single day, every single month, every single year on an ongoing basis. So when you make a decision with your investments, I would argue it's got a large systemic shift. It's a decision that you make one time. Whereas when we're talking about donations, right, that is something that we need to set up on a recurring basis such that you're going to be donating every year. So I'm not saying one is better than the other. I want people to invest sustainably and I want people to donate to wonderful organizations. But this notion that we should sort of do one versus the other is just ridiculous. What's really nice about sustainable investing is you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, that we can divest from evil companies, earn market rates of return, and donate to amazing nonprofits and charities. And this conversation, this assumption about higher fees when it comes to sustainable investments really leads to the next question that I get all the time, which is people are understanding what's the deal with M.E.Rs. This is a really important acronym that a lot of people have never really heard about or learned about. And as soon as they learn about M.E.Rs, sort of the window opens and people really get a big breath of fresh air here. This is one of the most important acronyms that investors need to know about. M.E.R stands for Management Expense Ratio, which is code word for annual fee. So when we invest money, we are paying an annual fee to that fund manager. That no one's investing in individual companies these days. You really shouldn't pick and choose individual stocks. No. We want to invest in funds. Now, there are a whole bunch of different types of funds. Mutual funds have the highest M.E.R. That if you just walk into a bank or a credit union and you just let them sell you a mutual fund, you're going to be paying an M.E.R. usually around about 2% per year. This means that if you invest $100,000, you're paying $2,000 in fees every single year. And 2% might not sound like a lot, but when we're expecting to earn between like 6.5% to 7.5% annually on our portfolio, you subtract 2 from that, that's like a huge amount. And there's this really cool book called Beat the Banks. A guy named Larry Bates, he created a little tool, something he calls the T-Rex score, which calculates the impact of these higher fees over time. And a 2% M.E.R. over a 25-year time period, and most of us are investing for like longer than 25 years. But if we just look at 25 years, that's going to eat almost half of your returns. Half of your returns are going to disappear in management fees because of this high M.E.R. It's wild. And so back in the day when the only way to invest ethically was through ethical mutual funds, they would gouge us. Instead of 2%, they charge us about 2.4%, right? Which meant that you were losing more than half of your money to fees over that 25-year period. Absolute highway robbery. Now, lucky for us, we don't need mutual funds. There are other options. If you still want full service, you still want someone to do it for you, we can invest in something called pooled funds. This is where we pool our money together with other investors. Those fees are going to be lower depending on the pooled fund. It'll lower, depending on how much money you've got and depending on the pool fund. Sometimes we can get the fees down as low as about 1% a year. If you don't have as much money to get started with, then, you might be paying sort of 1.5 to 1.7% per year, certainly better than the 2% for mutual funds. And then the cheapest option are going to be exchange traded funds or ETFs. Now, ETFs have the lower M.E.Rs. They've got the lowest management expense ratio. The all-in-one ETFs that I love, especially for starter investors, those have an M.E.R. of about 0.25%. So it's literally 0.25%. So when I meet someone who has these ethical mutual funds where they're getting ripped off and they're paying 2.4%, if we can switch them into an all-in-one ETF, I'm literally lowering their fees by 90%. We're taking 90% off those annual fees, right? Which means that you're going to keep so much more of your money in retirement, that these returns are going to compound in your favor and that money is going to stay in your pocket. So as much as I love talking to people about sustainability and ethical investing and all these wonderful things, actually like the biggest impact I have in people's lives is often lowering their M.E.R. Because you talk to me and you take my classes and you learn about this stuff, you learn a few acronyms and you make the switch. And by lowering your M.E.R., you're going to keep more money in your pocket. This is one of the biggest things that you can do for you and your family's prosperity is to lower your management fee. So if you've never heard of M.E.Rs before, welcome, happy to open your eyes to this concept of management expense ratios and annual fees. This is one of the biggest things that we have control over. We don't have control about the stock market, whether it goes up or down. We're just kind of bystanders on that boat, but we have complete control over the fees that we're paying. And so one of the best steps that you can take as an individual investor is lowering your M.E.R. So the last question we're going to tackle today is one that I've been getting a lot over the years, but I'm getting it a lot right now, which is, what's the point of investing for the long term if the world is going to shit? Right? That if with climate change, with war, with all of these issues that we're facing, rampant inequality, oh my goodness, pick your issue. It's really, really easy to feel like the world is completely falling apart right now. I get it. And I want to be real with you that if the markets crash, if it's the big one and capitalism fails and the market just completely falls apart, it doesn't matter where your money is invested. It really doesn't matter. What's going to matter in that scenario is whether you can grow food, if you know how to grow food, and whether you're friends with your neighbors. It's not going to matter where your money's invested if it's the big one. I've got these different model portfolios, and I've always had this idea at some point that I want to do a zombie apocalypse portfolio. That what would a model portfolio be like if we had a complete zombie apocalypse? In this case, we don't want to invest in stocks and bonds. We want to buy things that are easily divisible and that can be easily traded and that can be stored for a long time, right? So things like spices and things like green coffee beans, not roasted coffee beans. Those goes bad quicker. We want green coffee beans or cacao. We want batteries and we want medicine and things like that. Instead of management fees, we would have storage fees that we would have for the zombie apocalypse portfolio. Now, obviously, I'm being a little bit silly here, but I want to say that, if the market does completely fall apart, it really doesn't matter where your money's invested. So the work that we're doing in terms of sustainable investing is in case the economy doesn't fall apart. Because if capitalism endures, we want to make sure that we are looking after ourselves in the future. I'll never forget an early client that I had. I met a woman who is in her sort of mid 60s. She came to me, she said, Tim, I've got about $300,000 saved up, which is no small feat. Like, she did really well saving up $300K, but she had never invested it. She always kind of kept it in cash, not quite under her mattress, but she might as well have, because she had read Rachel Carlson's Silent Spring, and she was an early environmentalist, and she knew the economy was unsustainable. And so she said, Tim, I always just figured the economy was going to collapse, markets were going to fall apart. And so I never invested my money. And now she's in a position where she's facing down retirement. And $300K isn't a small amount, but it's not really enough to retire on. So she's going to have to start making some tough decisions. So fortunately, she did meet me when she did. And I was able to talk to her and said, well, okay, if the economy collapses, it doesn't really matter where your money is. So why don't we take this money and actually invest it and take some risk in order to grow that so that you do have more financial security in retirement. And, she took my suggestion and we came up with a sustainable investment plan. And she's now able, probably 10 years later, she's got a lot more money than she would have otherwise. So, to me, I really understand this viewpoint that the economy is unsustainable. And I think that a lot of us use that as an excuse to do nothing. That it's just kind of taking the easy way out, saying, you know what, I just don't want to think about it. I just don't want to have to worry about it. It feels so icky and gross. So I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to assume that the economy is going to collapse. And that's an easy way for us to procrastinate. But I'm the little angel on your shoulder that's here in case capitalism endures, that we do want to be earning these compound returns. We do want to be growing our wealth so that we do have this notion of not only financial independence or financial freedom, but financial fulfillment, that we can really enjoy ourselves now and in the future by having a degree of economic freedom, not only to look after yourself and your family, but also to create a legacy, to be able to donate to nonprofits, participate in mutual aid, see the world, participate in cultural events, do all the things that make life worth living. So many of them do take money. So we do want to look after ourselves first, that in a world that's falling apart, it's really important that we use this degree of self-care. It's really important that we look after ourselves, that we put our own oxygen mask on first so that we're then able to help other people. And what that means in a financial context is doing the work of investing in a way that will allow you and your family to have prosperity now and in the future, Obviously, we're going to do it in the most ethical, sustainable way that we possibly can. But I want to be clear that I'm not going to let you get away with not doing anything, with just throwing your hands up and saying, the world's going to hell. So, I might as well not invest at all. Like, no, no, no. What we want to do is protect ourselves in case capitalism does endure. We want to make sure that we are looking after ourselves and our family. The analogy that I use is that capitalism is a train on train tracks headed off a cliff. I get it. It sucks. Really, what we're trying to do is to build a separate set of train tracks that are going to divert away from the cliff. And so by throwing our hands up and saying, I'm not going to invest in anything, well, guess what? It just means you're riding that train over the cliff. At least by acknowledging the problem and by taking control of our money, what we can do is direct part of our capital to build those new train tracks, to invest in things like community bonds and renewable energy cooperatives that are really going to help build that new economy. If you've got questions about your personal finances, I'm here for you. You can request a free consultation at goodinvesting.com or join my classroom. The classroom is a great place to join other sustainable investors who are on their journey to be able to align their investments with their values. I've got mini courses. You can ask me questions on the bulletin board. And twice a month, I do something called an AMA, an Ask Me Anything, which is just a really fun place for people to come and ask me whatever questions they've got. And it's the best way for you to support me if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.